What is up, everybody? Welcome back to our channel. My name is Matt, and I'm going to start spooky season a little early. Today is September 8th, and the reason I'm starting spooky season early is because I have been wanting to read a horror book so badly, and I don't know why exactly. I'm typically a fantasy dude, fantasy, sci-fi, not so much sci-fi, mostly fantasy. But for whatever reason, I've been craving a horror book. I've never really been huge into horror, but this year in particular, I've been wanting to read more horror. So I'm going to take the months of September and maybe a little bit of October for spooky season, which is usually just October. But there's going to be The Last Secret Project is coming out in October, so I'll be reading that. So because I want to get as much spookiness as I can during spooky season this year, I'm going to do 2 months worth of spooky season. And right now I've got 5 books picked out, and depending on how quickly I get through them, I might add more. I have another one that I have in mind, but I know it's going to take me forever to get through it. But anyways, the 5 books that I'm going to read for spooky season this year are in this stack next to me. The first horror book that I am going to read, I actually already finished it. By the time I'm recording this clip, I finished it yesterday. So I finished it on the 7th. Yeah. Not that that matters to you. So I already finished The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. So Grady Hendrix wrote one of my favorite books of the year so far that I read earlier this year called Horror Store, that I read for, I think it was My Wife Chooses My TBR. And so Shawnee picked it out for me to read, and I actually really enjoyed it. It's about like an IKEA-like store where weird stuff is happening, and you can hear more of my thoughts in that video. I'll link it down below, and I'll put it in the card thing. So I was intrigued by Grady Hendrix and wanted to read more of his work, and I saw this on one of the tables in Barnes & Noble. It really piqued my interest. One of my favorite genres of movies is like slasher, horror, thriller type vibes, like the OG Friday the 13th. Oh my gosh. The original Friday the 13th is one of my favorites. It's like a classic horror slasher thriller thing. Vibe. I say vibe a lot. Anyways, I like slasher thrillers, and this is about, there is a group of girls who have survived mass murder incidences, and they have a support group that meets like once a month, I think. And at the beginning of the book, they come and meet for one of their monthly meetings, and one of the girls doesn't show up. And then while they're in the group, one of the girls that is meeting gets a phone call, and turns out that the girl who didn't show up is dead. That's not a spoiler. It happens in like the first chapter or 2, and so you can't get mad at me for that. And I have another book in this stack that is fairly similar, Final Girls by Riley Sager. So this is going to be the second book that I read for this spooky season, and the reason being is because I wanted to do a comparison between these 2 books because they seem pretty similar. Basically, there's a group of final girls that meet together, hang out, and one of them doesn't show up, and pandemonium strikes. So anyways, Final Girls by Riley Sager. This will be my first Riley Sager that I read. He is a mystery thriller author, but I wanted to add this to spooky season because I feel like relates very strongly to Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. So by the time you're watching this, I already have that comparison video posted, or at least I should if I was on top of it. And so you can hear my drawn out thoughts on both of these books in that video, which I will also link in the description. So those are the first 2 books I'll be reading for spooky season. And the next one is one that I've had my eye on for a while. I've owned for a while. It is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. And I believe this is here on the back it says, a gripping and atmospheric reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. So I will admit, most of the reason I wanted to read this is the cover. It's like a dead rabbit, and there's another rabbit that is made out of mushrooms. I don't know how to... Anyways, I've never read The Fall of the House of Usher. I've been interested in Edgar Allan Poe's work before, but the only thing I've read by him is The Raven. I have a collection of his that maybe I'll pull out for this once I finish the other ones, if I'm interested in it, maybe. But I don't know. We'll see how I like this, and then maybe I can do a comparison between this and the original story. But yeah, when this came out, I saw a lot of booktubers talking about it. So I know very little about this. Legitimately, I know nothing about this other than it is a reimagining of an Edgar Allan Poe story. And I'm excited because it's a short one, so I should probably be able to knock it out in like a day or two, maybe. So pads my yearly reading stats and a quick book to add for the challenge. So I'm excited for this one. This will be the third book that I read. And then the last two I might read alongside each other because they're the two that I am most equally excited about. They're the two that I'm most excited about, and I'm excited about them equally. I don't know if that is making sense. First one that I'll talk about is a short story collection by Junji Ito called Deserter. There's at my local Barnes & Noble, Ito has his own table that is designated to him and his works. You've got Uzumaki. What's the one that starts with the R? Regina? There's Geo, and then a bunch of these short story collections. And out of all the short story collections, this is the one that looked the most brutal. And so that is the reason that I picked this one out of all of them. And I feel like every time that I go back, there's another one of these short story collections that is new that I haven't seen before. But anyways, I read Uzumaki last year, maybe the beginning of this year. I don't remember exactly, but I loved it. It was incredible. This dude's different. He's built different. Now, if you've heard Uzumaki or familiar with his work, his name's not Uzumaki. If you're familiar with Junji Ito, he's pretty well known for a lot of body horror. And so if you're not into that, probably content warning for that for most of his work. But it didn't bother me. And honestly, that was like, it bothers me because it's like creepy and it's horrifying, but not so much that I didn't want to read it. Like that is the part that freaked me out the most, like body horror, more so than other elements of horror that may be out there. Anyways, this will be my second Junji Ito that I've ever read, and I am so stoked for it. I need to go ahead and power through the rest of these books so I can just knock this out. And then once I do, I can buy another one and then read that and then just eventually own all of them. But that's down the road. So this will be either 4 or 5 that I finish for this. It's not a challenge. I almost called it a challenge for this spooky season video. And then the last one that I have scheduled right now for me, which, I mean, these are pending based on how quickly I finish them, if I still want to read horrors after I finish them, blah, 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 blah. This is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. I'm going to do that again. This is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. What's awesome about this one is this was originally written on Reddit, like a collection of posts on Reddit, and somebody or some people wanted to bind it up and publish it. And I have heard like, holy balls, this will scare your pants off. And I sure hope it does. I don't want to have nightmares, but I want to read a book that's going to give you nightmares. Like maybe I should see somebody, maybe I need some help, but goodness gracious, I can't wait for this one. Honestly, that's pretty much all I know about this book, is that it was originally written as a collection of posts on Reddit. But once I am into this book and reading it, I'll be sure to give you guys updates and thoughts and stuff. So as of now, the only book that I've finished is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. But because I already have a video with all my thoughts on it, I'm not going to say too much about it right now. I'll talk more about the books that won't have their own dedicated videos, which will be the last 3 that I just mentioned. So for now, I will check back in with you once I finish Final Girls by Riley Sager and I'm starting What Moves the Dead. Let's see how spooked I can get this season. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, what's up, everybody? I thought I'd give you guys just an update. Today is the 15th of September. It's exactly a week after I recorded that first clip. And I have now finished Final Girls by Riley Sager. So this is the second book in the spooky season TBR. I'm thinking that hopefully I'll get to add some books towards the end of this challenge because I've already knocked out 2 and it's only been a couple weeks. I have already started book 3. I'm not very far in and it's a little guy. So my plan is to just read this book on Sunday. But it is What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher. I've only read 1 chapter. It's been kind of hard to grasp, but maybe that's because my attention was elsewhere. I started reading it at work. That's actually where I get most of my reading done, when it's slow at the coffee shop. So yeah, I'm starting book 3. Hopefully I'll finish it this weekend, and then starting Monday, I can start. I think I'm going to read Penpal and Deserter like at the same time, bounce between them. Those are the 2 that I'm most excited about in this challenge. And I think this one, What Moves the Dead might be the one I'm least excited about because I really don't know what to expect. I've seen a few people talk about it. And I will admit, and I'm pretty sure I've said it in the first clip, I bought this because of the cover. Hopefully that's enough, or hopefully the story will make it worth buying. Because yeah, I have no idea what it's about. As far as the first two go, Final Girl Support Group and Final Girls, I actually recorded and uploaded a comparison video that's kind of like a 2-in-1 book review, I guess you could say. But because they're so similar, I wanted to do like a compare and contrast between the two. So yeah, if you want my full thoughts on those two books, I'll leave that video linked in the description. It should have gone up before you are seeing this. And in short, I liked both of them, but I liked the Riley Sager more. I have my reasons. So this one, I think I ended up giving 2.5 or 3 stars. I don't quite remember. In the Notion reading tracker database that I built, there's not a way to do the way I set it up. I don't have a way to do 0.5s. And so the rating I put just shows 2 stars, but I don't think it's 2 stars. I think it's more than 2 stars. So it might be 2.5, but Final Girls was a 5-star. This was a very good book. They're both good books. I think you should read both of them. Maybe not back to back like I did. That might be a good way to burn yourself out on some slasher, thriller, horror, mass murder, surviving stories. That might be a little much for some people. But yes, I highly recommend Final Girls yes, I recommend both of those books. You should read them. So for today's Friday, tomorrow's Saturday, we recently bought Baldur's Gate on both of our computers, and I will be playing that this evening and probably tomorrow afternoon. So I won't be getting much reading done on those 2 days. However, my plan for Sunday right now is to put football on in the afternoon in the background and not really pay attention to the games, and see if I can knock out this little guy. I think it's like 150 something pages. So if I really just put my head down, like grind through this, hopefully it's not a grind. If I just really just focus and read and sit down and do nothing else, I can knock this out on Sunday. So I will update you guys further once that is finished. And yeah, I'll see you in the next clip. All right, everybody. Today is October 2nd, and I am done with these books, so let's chat about them. I know I didn't vlog very much after finishing the second book. This is like the fastest I've ever read, and I've just been like so glued to these books. I didn't think about filming. So I'll let you know what I thought about each of the books. I planned on doing it in between each book, but here's what you get. So the first 2 books that I read were The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix and Final Girls by Riley Sager. I've chatted a little bit about these in this video already. This one was 5 stars, and this was 3. I think maybe 2.5 to 3, maybe 3.5. Can't quite remember. This was the first one I read. I can't remember exactly what I rated it, but I do know that this was a 5-star. 2 pretty similar stories. They have their differences. I found it so interesting that 2 stories that seemed so alike could be told so differently and have such varying reading experiences. So those were the first 2, which I've talked about already. And then the third book that I read was What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher. This is a reimagining, which you saw in the last clip in this video. This is a reimagining of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, which I haven't read, but I do have access to it. We have a Edgar Allan Poe bind up, and I think it might be public domain, so you could probably just find it online somewhere. I don't know. Anyways, I actually really enjoyed this. It's a really quick read. I read it in like a day and a half, maybe 2 days. Basically, you follow a guy named Alex Easton, who is a former like military officer or like a war veteran, and he is now an officer of the law. I think he's like a lieutenant or something. I don't know. But his friend, Madeline, I believe is her name, has fallen ill, and she thinks that her brother thinks that she's dying. And so because of that, Alex decides to ride up to her house and visit her and check up on her, see how she's doing one last time before she does pass. Stuff just gets weird from there, and it's all due to fungi, like mushrooms and stuff. He meets some pretty odd characters, experiences some pretty weird stuff, and yeah, pretty creepy imagery, honestly. Pretty gnarly. I did enjoy this. I can't remember what I rated it. I will put it on the screen somewhere. That was the third book that I read in the month of September. And then the fourth one is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. I think I rated this like 4 stars, 4-ish. It feels like a 4 to 5 read. So this was actually published online in separate threads. I'm pretty sure it was Reddit, and eventually someone loved it so much that they bound it up and created this guy. So this is the story of, you can read it as Dathan telling you his story as a child. The protagonist isn't ever named, from what I remember. It's told in first person, and he's recounting scary things that happened in his childhood. He lived, I don't remember the region, or even if it was named, but he lives in these, not in woods, but like he lives on the outskirts of woods, and befriends a boy named Josh, and they spend a lot of time in the woods playing and running. And this might be the scariest book out of all of the ones that I read, because it deals with stalking. Spoiler, content warning. Well, content warning first and foremost, but also kind of a spoiler, because I didn't really know what was the scary part of this book. But it's scary because like stuff like this like really does happen more often than people being infected by mushrooms. Like stalking is a real thing that happens like way more often. So this feels more scary to me, because I would be more likely to experience it. And I don't want to experience it, but because I feel more likely to, it's scarier to me. And I don't know if that is weird or if you would disagree with that. That's just kind of how I feel. In reading this book, I expected it to be a little more scary because just the people I've heard, or what I've heard people say about this book. But yeah, Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. I don't really want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil. So it's kind of like, it's formulated in like short stories, but it tells an overarching story. But each chapter, so to speak, is written in kind of like a short story. Like each chapter has its own beginning, middle, and end. I liked that. I liked how there were little reveals, little puzzle pieces being revealed, and then you can place it to create your own, or not your own, but that you can piece together Dathan's puzzle. Not that it's a mystery, but things that you would question, like what the heck is going on, you will discover, and you can put it in its place, and then eventually you will have the full picture. If you think that you can handle it, I would recommend this book, absolutely, especially if you're into horror novels in that genre. Definitely check this one out. I really enjoyed this, really glad I checked it out. And then the last one that I read for the month of September was a manga written by Junji Ito called Deserter. So this is a collection of short stories written by the king of horror manga himself, Junji Ito. This is the second piece of Ito that I've read, first being Uzumaki. This one I didn't enjoy as much. Some of the stories just, I guess most easily said, they just weren't for me. Most of them. There were 2, maybe 3 stories that I really, really liked out of this guy. And none of the stories have really anything to do with each other. They're all their own stories. They're all individual. You don't have to read them sequentially. You can skip around if you wanted to. This is just a short story collection written by Junji Ito. If you know anything about Junji Ito, you know that he's really into body horror. And so if you are not into that, I would probably stay away from any Junji Ito stuff. I don't mind it as much. In fact, the stories that I liked the most out of this one dealt with body horror the most heavily. Just because they're the most freaky and like the ones that made me like cringe the most, I guess. So Deserter by Junji Ito was the 5th book. I think I gave the whole book overall 3 stars. Sounds right. I should really like have these up somewhere when I record this. The 2 stories that I liked the most were called Face Thief. No, not Face Thief. Sorry. Where the Sandman Lives, and The Long Hair in the Attic. Oh, and then probably honorable mention would be the first one, which is called Biohouse. So there's 12 stories in here. All of them are good-ish, at least. But those 3 that I mentioned were great. I loved them. So in doing this spooky lineup, I think I've discovered a new observation about myself, in that I think I might prefer horror books in a short story format, or horror stories in a short story format, as opposed to a full-length novel. Because I really enjoyed Penpal, you know, viewing it as a series of short stories to create one big story overall. I enjoyed how each chapter was its own story in itself, but was only a piece of the puzzle, as opposed to like if I were to read The Shining, which I've read a few years ago. That being like its own maybe 400 to 500 page novel. There's a lot of downtime there. Now I know that that's Stephen King. He's got pacing issues, which you've probably heard about. That's not what I'm saying. I feel like I would enjoy short stories more because I feel like they move faster. My ADD pops off if I don't have a plot to follow, and I need things to move. I can't be stagnant for too long. I will lose interest and throw the book out the window. That being said, I think I might pick up more short story collections. So if you know of any short story collections, feel free to drop any recommendations in the comments. So here are the books that I've read for spooky season of this year, and I probably could have read more if The Secret Project hadn't just come out. So yeah, looking forward to reading more horror eventually in the near future. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading all these. This is probably the best reading month I've had probably in my whole life. I love that. So hopefully sometime soon I'll be able to improve that. And if you've watched this entire video, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed what you heard me say, and maybe you'll pick up one of these books. And if you do, let me know what you think. And yeah, like, subscribe, and you can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on TikTok. Anyways, that's all I've got. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.